Hello everyone, welcome back to the Zekko football channel. Arsenal are sitting third in the Premier League table, just 2 points off of leaders Tottenham, but there's a general consensus that they are far and away from their very best and the benchmark that they set last season. But why is that? Well, I believe one of the major issues is actually captain Martin Odegaard. And before you have a go at me, Arsenal fans, hear me out and then let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Today, we're going to be talking all about Arsenal and Martin Odegaard's current role in this side. If you are new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe, you like the video, and you turn on those notifications. It really helps me out. Right, let's dive into it. To begin, we're going to be having a look at Martin Odegaard's role in this Arsenal side. Now, I think he's having far less of an impact on this Arsenal's team. He's having much less influence on the way that they go forwards and the positions that he picks up. And it's really showcased in this season heat map here. This is the heat map for the 23-24 season, the season that we're currently in, off of the back of 9 games. And if we can see, he's out on this right-hand side in this right attacking midfield slot, that's fine. But I would like to see him drift in fields a little bit more. I think he's a little bit restricted in this, and he's really just holding down this particular area. I'd like to see him centrally a little bit more to be able to open up his passing range. He's also occupying this right hand side a little bit too much for my liking, making those overlapping runs for Bukayo Saka to drift in field, which is something I think Ben White should be doing. Clearly a tactical shift from Mikel Arteta, but it's having a far worse impact on Ødegaard than I think he would have expected. Ødegaard previously drifted in field and that opened up so many lanes for him. The reverse pass to Saka, the ability to have a shot, but also the switch of play that can go over to Gabriel Martinelli. Instead, so much more is being asked of Ødegaard, but he just can't really deliver in the same way from the wide area that he's essentially pinpointed towards. And his underlying stats are really reflecting that. If we have a look at his key passes that he's had this season, 1.7 is nowhere near as high as it was last season at 2.1. So it's definitely lower. He's definitely having less of an impact. And we can see from his numbers this season that just generally from his numbers, he's having far less of an impact as well. 3 goals this season, which you could argue isn't that bad, but 2 of those are actually penalties. And he's got 1 assist out of an expected assist of 1.15. Again, not great for being the main creator in this Arsenal side out of 9 games. So something has changed. We can also have a look at the game that he had against Chelsea, because I think that's a decent example. Chelsea flooded the midfield and it pushed Ødegaard out towards that right hand side. We can see that here. Chelsea really flooded this right hand side to try and stop Ødegaard from playing, but he never really found a different pocket of space to be able to operate in. Instead of drifting infield, he hugged out on the right hand touchline, and it just meant that Chelsea found it a little bit easier to really isolate him. If we have a look at his heat map here, he's, yes, very isolated here. He doesn't really drift infield. He does it occasionally, but not really too much. And he had such little impact on this game in particular that it just allowed him to be marked out of the game entirely. He's definitely having less of a major role in this Arsenal team when it comes to building up play, but also his final key passes are definitely dwindling as well. Seriously, he's having a much less of an impact on the way this Arsenal team goes forwards. Martin Odegaard's lessened impact is also notified in some further stats. This is a stat sheet for Arsenal for last season, the 22-23 season, and I've got this season's stat sheet to compare him to. Right, the 2 players that we're going to be looking at are Martin Odegaard and Gabriel Martinelli, the 2 players that are highlighted. We're going to be focusing on Ødegaard, but I really wanted to just mention Martinelli after what I found, and perhaps there might be a link between both of them as to the reason that I think Ødegaard is struggling so much. So let's go back to Ødegaard, and the 2 stats that I really want to mention and look at are non-penalty XG and expected assisted goals. So essentially the goals that he's expected to get and the assists that he's expected to get. So if we follow and have a look at non-penalty XG to begin with, 0.29 for last season. That's 0.29 per 90. Let's compare that to this season, and it's gone down drastically from 0.29 per 90 to 0.11. That is a crazy drop off. Let's focus again on the expected assisted goals, and that's 0.08. I'll say that again, 0.08 for Martin Odegaard. That is crazily low. Comparing that per 90, he had 0.23. Something is going on here. His impact in this side is definitely dwindling. He's having far fewer key passes, far fewer major touches, and he's definitely assisting a lot less. Again, small sample size, I know, but he's definitely not having the impact that he was last season. And let's just have a look at Martinelli, because Martinelli's impact is definitely lower as well. Last season, he had a non-penalty XG of 0.3 and an expected assists goals of 0.29. Let's just have a look at what he's got this season. 0.15 for this season and 0.11. It's actually half of the impact that Martinelli was having. And I think it's down to a particular point in this Arsenal team that's really affecting both of these going forwards and the roles that both of them are playing. I might be going on a limb here and I could be wrong. However, I think the major issue with Martin Odegaard and his lessened impact on this side, and the problem with Gabriel Martinelli, is down to one thing, and that's the imbalance in Arsenal's midfield. It's surrounding this player here, the Granit Xhaka role. When we think about the way that Granit Xhaka played, yes, he went up and down the pitch, yes, he floated around, but generally he stayed in a pretty stagnant position. He dropped deep when he needed to allow Zinchenko to go forwards, but overall, everyone knew where he was in this area. Now, the fact of the matter is that when you put a Kai Havertz in there, a Fabi Vieira in there, it's not the same. It's not the same. So I think that Arteta has told Ødegaard to stay very stationary. I think he's told him to hold his position because Arsenal needs structure. And when we're talking about teams that are managed by the likes of Pep, by the likes of Arteta, they're from the same way of thinking, right? So they want particular positions on the pitch that they can rely on. They know that they're going to be there. But Bukayo Saka doesn't go roaming. He just doesn't. Martinelli does not go roaming unless they're drifting infield. Gabriel Jesus can go roaming, but he normally goes roaming over to one of the left or right hand sides. He never drops back far too much because of the fact that Arsenal needs structure in their side, the same way that Pep needs a single midfield pivot like Arteta does as well. Zinchenko coming into midfield, but he only comes into midfield at particular scenarios because you need to be able to predict the plan. However, this big question mark here has not been answered. Not at all. Kai Havertz has not come into the role. Fabi Vieira has not come into the role. Trossard doesn't really play it in the same way, which means that this particular instance is a variable. It's continuously changing. Nobody knows where it's going to be, and that affects Ødegaard, it affects Rice, it affects Martinelli. Rice has come into it and been okay, but even when Rice moves over into this position, people are not sure where he's going to be. Now, it's down to a learning, it's down to understanding where people are going to be at certain times, but there is a fluctuation and a flexibility that cannot be accounted for at the moment. And Martin Odegaard is being the major person that is not benefiting from this. He's being seriously hampered by it because he needs to keep this role. He needs to make sure that Arsenal have a balance in attack and a continuous wide basis to be able to go forwards. Martinelli is being hindered because with the unknown essentially in this area, he doesn't know whether to stick, twist, go or whatnot. The passages of play that they have just aren't able to be facilitated the way they were last year. They were a well-oiled machine. Everyone knew their role. Everyone knew where they needed to be. Partey was here, you had Xhaka here, you had Martinelli here, Saka, Ødegaard, everything flowed. And it was all fine. But now you've added in an unknown to the equation. What is going to happen? Where are they going to be? Kai Havertz ends up drifting over to this touchline. Now, I'm sure that Mikel Arteta does not want him there. I'm sure he wants him occupying particular pockets of space. But at the same time, Arsenal aren't really flowing. And they're not flowing because of the lack of understanding and the variables that are put in by not having one of their major linchpins in midfield. There's an imbalance here. And I think that imbalance will go away. But at the moment, it's seriously hampering the likes of Martin Odegaard. And he is definitely not able to be contributing the way that he should be. And he's seriously hampering the way that this team goes forwards at the moment. He's not playing passes. He's not really impacting games. When you think about the big matches, he's not having the major influence that I'm sure a lot of people would want. And at the moment, he's the problem with the way that Arsenal go forwards. He's not switching play. He's not doing those reverse passes. He's not shooting on goal. He's not really creating all too much. And when you're doing that and just trying to occupy some space, you're becoming more of a hindrance than you are a benefit. So Arsenal are going to need to take time to understand who is going to be playing in this position long term, how they're going to be playing the role, and how it's going to affect the other players in this side, because at the moment they look rather uncertain, and that's why I think you've got the slow build-up of play, because Arsenal are not comfortable in playing in those extremely high-paced, high-fast scenarios. The turnovers and transitions are something they do instinctively, but what they've worked on in the training ground is not able to be facilitated at the moment because of the unknown. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, but that's my take on it. Please let me know your thoughts on Arsenal and how well you think they're going to do this season. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, take care.